Hey, everybody, welcome to Distorted, mental health podcast. I try to cover lots of different topics. Today's topic is it's for the adults, not that there's any kids watching, but I want to talk about some of the distortions around pornography, what it does to people. And I may be biased. I may just talk about today more the men's perspective than the woman's. It's not to say that there isn't one there, but it might not be as much about that. I just want to start off by saying I'm going to take a different approach to this. There's a lot of coping mechanisms out there in the world. Some we would deem positive, some we would deem negative. And the aspect of this is it's like dysfunction. It's still functional, but it's dysfunction. It's functioning in a way that's causing another layer of harm. The coping mechanisms that we pick, that we use to sort of get through something difficult, oftentimes lead to their own set of issues. And obviously, if I said drugs and you'd say, okay, we get it, people drink or smoke, to, young people vape, to use a substance as a way to distract or numb from what is currently going on. And in a lot of ways, we do the same thing with sexual gratification and with identifying through the that part of who we are. It's a quick coping. It's a quick fix. So I want to tackle a couple different areas when it comes to this. One of the things you have to recognize about a coping mechanism is that it has to do for you something in line with what your expectation is that it's going to do for you. So, I always tell people, why do you smoke marijuana? Because it does what it is you think it's going to do. It works. And until you have a replacement behavior, you're probably going to still use that. And again, that's difficult for a lot of people to say, well, you shouldn't do it because it's bad. Well, okay. On some level, if you've never started smoking, the chances are you're not just going to pick it up, willy-nilly for no reason, that there'd be a motivation to want to alter the way you feel. Maybe you could say it's purely recreational, but for most people, once they dive into something like that, they stay with it because of the effect that it has. It does what you think it's going to do. It alters you, and it removes you from consciousness enough that you can feel better for a moment. If it didn't do that, it would be plain stupid to inhale a carcinogen into your system if it didn't have any positive side effect. There would be no point to that. You can eat food, but if you overeat, it has a negative consequence. So when we talk about pornography, it's the same thing. You are accessing something that would be a natural part of your existence, but you're doing it at an escalated level and an artificial level. And that's the next thing I want to touch on, is the artificial nature that is created. You go back and think about the separation between something that is normal, that you do engage in marriage, which is preferably the way that we would be doing it, at least at a minimum, a committed relationship. Now, I know society doesn't care about such things, and they use it and they abuse it whenever they want. Well, they do the same thing with most things. Those of us with a faith background, we try to take into consideration that it's not something that you're supposed to use out of abuse. And so ADD is a terrible thing to waste. And since I've said abuse twice, I'm gonna categorize this really quick for everybody. You have misuse, you have abuse, you have dependency, and then you have addiction. And my intention for today's podcast is not necessarily talk about it as an addiction. We can save that for another time. I'll probably do something just on addiction. This is more about a coping mechanism that is being misused and why it's so easy to misuse. So this idea of an artificial representation, what you see in the world of this type of entertainment, is not realistic to what actually happens. Well, that's intentional. It has to be. It would not do what you think it was going to do if there was an emotional content to it and a struggle to get to the outcome. So that's all been taken care of. That's all been eliminated. A false sense of presentation that would lead you to believe that what you want is accessible to you and you don't have to do anything to get there. Well, that's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous to think you could walk up to somebody with no context and the end result of that would be you guys are going to be intimate. That's just ridiculous. And you know that. You know that's ridiculous. But yet, if I'm looking for a way to get outside of my realistic presentation and what's bothering me, Let's go to the fakest thing possible. Let's create an environment where the unrealistic becomes real. And let's make it happen 100% of the time. Never a doubt. Never a doubt that you win every time you access this coping mechanism. You win every time. You never lose. You never get refuted. You never get refused. You never get restricted. You always win. If you smoke marijuana and you get stoned, you use it. If you smoked it and didn't get stoned, you'd probably go, let me find something else that actually gets me stoned. Not that I am promoting that or suggesting that you should start. But you understand what I'm saying to you is that the coping part of this is that it's effective, does for you what you think it's going to do for you, and you get to the end result that you're looking for. Disconnect from what is harming you in real time with something fake, with something that doesn't exist in real time. The closer society pushes towards that, the more it becomes ingrained that it's something you have permission to do, that it's something that you deserve access to. That's the distortion of society, that they took something that was reserved to be precious and bonding and turned it into something useless and pointless. So you can feel better in a moment with no connection to why you're doing it. This is sad, if you ask me. It's sad. It destroys people because it distorts the way they look at their sexuality. It distorts the way that they conduct themselves with others, specifically the opposite sex. It distorts that, causes you to think about it in an ill-advised way, and it makes you think that it's accessible just because. That's not the case. There's a human being behind that. When you disconnect from your humanity, you can do all kinds of awful things. And the idea here is to not do that, is to understand that while it's a coping mechanism, when you try to replicate it in real life, you're going to struggle. And what I mean is in relationships with other people. You like somebody, you pursue them, and you find it debilitating because you can't get to the end game without commitment to the human being. But in reality, there's pain that comes from that. There's growth that comes from that. There's a bond that comes from that. That's how it was intended. It wasn't intended to be accessed because it makes you feel better. Now, God was kind enough to allow us to have something that makes us feel better. Not denying that. I'm saying that there is commitment and energy behind it to make it valuable to you, to make it important to you. And when you take that away, you change the way you think about this. And I don't want you to take that away. I want you to recognize what you're doing. For the men out there, to detach yourself from the emotional content is fine on a lot of levels. But you have to understand there's another person involved. Not in your fake world. There's nobody else involved because they don't have anything to say other than yes. That's not real. And if I'm the first person telling you that, I'm sorry. That's not real. Pizza delivery people don't do that to you. Okay? And hopefully you're laughing right now because that's funny. That's not how the world works. That's not how things go. A person doesn't dehumanize themselves so you can feel better. That's not normal. Okay, it's fun in that fantasy fake world. But if you're consuming it to the point of misuse, abuse, let's say dependency, you're watching it on a regular basis, you are distorting your brain when it comes to intimacy. That's not how intimacy works. That's not how it works. And this idea that you can translate that to real life doesn't exist, except when people start doing it willingly. When people start blurring the lines and they start engaging in activity in public to get attention for themselves. It works every time. Get a girl to kiss a girl. I bet you people are going to notice. It's not what it was designed for. Now, I understand young people do stupid things. I was young once. I'm saying for men who are already simplistic in their approach to this to begin with, over time, it damages your connection. Let me tell you why. You are separating from your content when you visualize sexuality with no connection. When you have access to the most intimate piece and you have done nothing to get it. Let me say that again so you understand. You are connecting to the deepest part of intimacy and have done nothing to get permission to have that happen when you watch this stuff. It is free access to something that is not free. It is access to intimacy that you've done nothing to earn. And if even in the slightest way that influences you when you're talking to a real person, it's going to get ugly. It's going to be hurtful. It's going to be demeaning. And you may not realize that, but it does hurt people when they're objectified to that level. So much, though, that some people participate in it. They participate in that objectification. What a shame. A terrible thing that we say about ourselves. My wise doctor wife, who you've seen on this podcast with me before, told me a long time ago, the more skin, the more pain. She's right. Young ladies, you do not need to show yourselves off to be appreciated. That is a lie. You do not have to compete with a fake world on a screen. It is a lie. Your value doesn't come from that. Okay? So this distorted version of wanting that attention because you're willing to explore that area in your real life, you have to understand that that connection's being made to something utterly and completely fake on its basis. You can't stop that from happening. You think you're being powerful and confident and flirtatious, but you don't understand if that man's been exposed to pornography. He's not seeing it that way. He's seeing it as access. That's not what you want. I'm pretty sure that's not what you intended when you wore that particular outfit that you can see yourselves wearing. It's not what you intended, but that's what happens because you can't control the way people perceive it. You don't get to decide that part. You have to understand the correlation. Let me give you an example, a common stock of knowledge inside our heads that when I was in school, a professor once told me. It was kind of a neat example. It's if you were standing in if you were up on the roof of a parking garage, like on the 5th floor of a parking garage, and you see a dog running, and it runs to the edge of the parking garage and jumps off the side and disappears and lands in a puff of smoke. You might think of Wile E. Coyote from Bugs Bunny Roadrunner days because that's the only connection your brain can make to something that absurd, that a dog would run to the edge of a parking garage and jump off the top of it. That's what the coyote used to do, like every episode when he was chasing the Roadrunner. Common stock of knowledge is a relative way that the brain connects information that is happening in front of it to something else to try to make it make sense. And historically, you're going to go to whatever you want to. For instance, real life dog, cartoon dog, because it's the only thing that would make sense in your brain to make a connection. Now, if you're following me on this, you're already jumping ahead of me and you know exactly what I'm saying. If you act like someone who's performing, they're going to affiliate and connect you to a memory that they have of somebody performing. And once the performance is done, you're left with what? A lot of disconnected interpersonal dynamics, and I would say a lot of emotional pain, possibly more, hopefully not. The distortion that comes with pornography is that it's not real and it can't be replicated unless someone is in harm's way. If you're okay with that, by all means, I guess. But I don't think most people watching this right now are okay with that. The male brain is affected by what it sees. We talked about this with the beauty mask episode, that if all the blemishes are removed in a magazine, on a video, and you're not actually seeing the human being as they really look, your brain can tell yourself that that is what you're looking for. You're looking for that image that doesn't exist. And you trick yourself into thinking you can find it, that you can replicate it, that you can create it. The worst thing you can do if you're a young lady is involve yourself in that type of behavior because you don't understand what it's being connected to. Or maybe you do. And I would say that's unfortunate. You are loved. You don't need to act like that. That's a false sense of someone loving you. I call it the lowest common denominator for a reason. Visually stimulated men, because we have a visual accuracy that we are able to define things with, and women looking for validation, the fastest way to get it is through your appearance. the double down on the pain when you can't get it. You understand this. When you can't get it to happen, you try even harder. You do even more extreme behaviors to get that level of validation, and you can't. It's very painful. Instead of looking for an alternative, how else can you receive validation? How else can you be authentic? Again, going back to this idea, for men who grew up being affected by it, you are watching people engage in behavior that is not akin to what happens in real life. You do that enough, you lose track of how to navigate it in real life. I want you to think about it like this. There's a part of your brain that has to detach in order to involve yourself in that behavior. Because everyone who is watching that behavior knows that probably shortly thereafter or during, you're probably going to masturbate. If you watch it with anyone else in the room, you have to shut that part of your brain off, not only for yourself, but for the other person, because that's just, you don't do that. You compartmentalize it. You shut it off. You're detaching from emotional, sort of directional information that comes into your brain. You're shutting it off because it's too embarrassing, too shameful, too fearful to actually engage in it in real time. So you're taking in the information, but you're not activating it until you're by yourself because it's too shameful to do in front of people. And that's what happens when you're actually with a real person. You're shutting off part of your connection with a real person. And you can create a rut in your brain just like anything else that you're able to do. Because that's how the brain, repetition is one of the ways the brain learns. You're shutting off a part of your brain connected to the deeper parts of your emotion and your content in order to engage in sexual gratification. Now you're with a real person and you're trying to recreate sexual gratification and you have no means at which to get there to make the other person safe enough to do that with. So it's either superficial and damaging for most people afterwards. You can lie if you want, but I know that's not the case. I've been doing therapy for a lot of years. I know that's a lie. You can say that to yourself, and I know a lot of people try to say that to themselves. It doesn't affect me negatively at all. Liar. I've seen it. On both sides. More so for young ladies. I've seen the damage. I've listened to the stories. I've read the data collection. That the repeating something that is artificially designed does not lead to closer intimacy and healthy sexual experiences. It doesn't. And even if it did, it would be temporary, one-off. And what's the cost? Do you recover from something like that? I don't know. I know a lot of people who didn't. Okay? Not going to talk about open relationships, although ADD is a terrible thing to waste. Never seen one work. I'm sure people say that it works. I'm the one that it worked. I've seen it go the other way. I've seen it devastate people. Because there's always a line. There's always rules. There's always boundaries. And they say there isn't until one gets crossed, and then they realize there was. And then it's too late. And then you have to deal with all the pain that comes from that experience. What am I basically saying here? It's impossible to indulge in a negative coping mechanism and expect it not to translate to other parts of your life. It doesn't work that way. If we were talking about drugs or gambling or any other negative coping mechanism, overeating, it comes back at a cost in other parts of what you're trying to accomplish. I know people talk about all, sexual experience and body count. That's never a good look. It's just never a good look. Access to everybody it's not a good look. It doesn't benefit you. I'm more experienced. No, that's not how it translates. Sorry, that's not how it translates. You may say to yourself, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do and I'm going to have fun. But at some point that's going to stop and you're going to pick somebody and then you're going to dictate to them what they should think. Are you okay with the fact that I've slept with 80 people? No. I don't care what I've invested. That's a hill too many. I'm done. The relationship's over. But we've been dating for a year. Not anymore. I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that that's true. that you cared so little about yourself that you went to that level of intimacy with 80 different people. I'm sorry. I mean, you can be mad at me. You can shut me off. You can say, I'm not going to watch Len anymore. He's talking about controversial things. When you expose yourself to a deviant version of something that is not based on realistic expectations or behavior, it has an effect on you. It changes the way you view this. It distorts from the normal progression of physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual connection with somebody. Most people don't just walk away and it just isn't a thing. It's not how most people work. Again, short term, can you recover? Sure. But I've seen people come through my door who are past misuse, past abuse, past dependency, and are looking at it as an addiction. They're looking at pornography daily. They might even be masturbating daily. And I'm seeing it more with women now. It's a disconnect, guys. It's a disconnect from reality. That's not how real life works. You don't win every time. You played sports on a team, you don't go undefeated every year. You'd be blessed if you did. I think UCLA did it for a couple of years. That's an anomaly. Most people lose. More than once. You do not go into a relationship, meet somebody for the first time, and less than 5 minutes later be completely naked with them. That's not real, everyone. Like you need me to tell you that. That's not real. That's not how it works. That's a gross exaggeration of reality, isn't it? But that's not what it's designed for. You smoke marijuana and it takes 7 hours before you feel the effects of it, you're not going to be very happy with that. It's not how things work when you're looking for gratification and immediacy. That's why you engage in it. You want it to work the way you think it's supposed to work. We do that with healthy stuff too. I'm not saying it's just for the negative. Coping is coping. What makes it negative is it adds another layer of, inhibitor or influence on you that you now have to work through. Anger keeps you safe, but you can't always get angry. It's why we talk about using a different lens, an adult voice lens, because you can't just get mad every time you want a boundary. It doesn't work. The alternative to this is figure out why you are looking to cope on a daily basis in this way. Challenge the notion that there is not an alternative, because you have to have a behavioral alternative. You're not just going to quit because it works. You have to have alternatives physically, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually to bring into your life so that you can reduce and then eliminate accessing pornography as a way to feel better about yourself. To go from something that's 100% win with no effort, that's a lie just based on that definition. 100% win with no effort. Even an athlete knows better than that. You might go undefeated, but you work your butt off to get there. You work hard to get there. It doesn't just happen. It's not realistic. Your brain loses its content. You lose your ability to navigate real people. You thought you were socially awkward before? Now you're really socially awkward because you're going to say and do things that are completely inappropriate. And when she looks at you and put daggers through your head with her eyeballs, you know it. You know you've overstepped because she's looking at you like, what the heck was that? Why would you even say that to me? And the sadness in your eyes if one of them does actually respond to you after you've said something derogatory to them. You understand the sadness in all of that? I'm sorry, but this is something that I'm passionate about because I see what it's doing to young people and some old. It's damaging. It's not realistic on the way that human beings interact with one another. It's why it's fake. It's why it's movies. It's why it's fake. Right? Wrestling's fake because you would actually break someone's back if you did the things that they do to somebody. It's okay. It's still entertaining. I understand that. But it's not. You can't break somebody's back and then they get up. Fights don't last that long when you're punching somebody in the head. I've been hit before. It's not fun. You don't want that to go on for 20 minutes. That's not how it works. That's the movies. They fight and sound effects and blah, blah, blah. That's not how it works. You watch UFC. It's much faster, yes? Much faster. And those are highly trained people. You get my point here? The distortion in and of itself is that it's a fabricated reality of how people interact. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And in the rare occasions that it does, there's usually drugs involved. And we're not going there today. So I'm asking you all to understand that it is a big deal out there. This is happening for a lot of people. There's a lot of people struggling with this. A lot of people accessing it. It's so easy to access it now. Press a button and you have access. Why do you think it continues the way that it does? Men are visually stimulated. There's no end. There's never an end. It's the 31 flavors. There's never an end because every flavor is different. It'll never end. You hearing me? It's never going to end. It's up to the individual to make a decision to not access it. It's never going to end. There will always be a demand. Men like women. Oh, well, right? You pick one. That's the one that you love. That's the one that you lust. I love my wife. That's it. That's the end of that discussion. There isn't access to anyone else. There was when I was younger. I had problems, right? I had issues just like everyone else as a young man. I was in the military, okay? It was almost unavoidable. I had to work through it. I'm not saying this to preach to anybody or to judge anybody. I'm not saying that I'm not immune. I struggled with it when I was a young man. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. It didn't go away. It didn't go away. Ironic. I said that already. It's never going away. It's going to get worse. There's going to be a hologram standing in front of you. What are you going to do then? It's going to interact with you. I've seen what they're doing with it. Candy AI. It's disgusting. There's no way around it. There's no way away from it. You've got to change the way that you perceive it and be honest with yourself in that perception, man or woman. You have to be honest. A person being presented to you with no flaw, immaculate skin, perfect eyes, bigger than they should be, just a little bit, just enough to distort you. The mask. How much eye makeup can you put on? Gosh, I've seen a lot. That's not your eye. It's not your eye anymore. It's certainly not your lashes. It's not your eye anymore. It's fine. It's harmless. You go out for a night out to dinner and you want to look a certain way. I get it. But that's not a day-to-day, wake up in the morning realistic presentation. It is in the TV shows. Anybody out there real? You wake up and there's makeup on the pillow. It's not on your face anymore. Am I the only one that knows this? Producer Shannon, you know this? Yes? I don't know. Am I the only? She's nodding yes. It's not perfect on your face at 8 o'clock in the morning when you woke up. That's not life. That's not how it works. Nor are you naked and saying, please have sex with me again. I had a bad night's sleep. That's ridiculous. You have to understand what's happening mentally in your brain as you are exposed to something that can't be replicated in real life. It starts to change the way that you navigate. You start to have delusions about what is accessible, what's permissible, what's appropriate, what's reasonable. Not everybody does it to the same degree. I understand. But if I'm a young guy who's already socially awkward and I'm trying to talk to people and I have no clue how to, because all I can think about is, I wonder if she'll get naked for me. That's not going to happen. She's probably not even going to talk to you. I mean, let's be real. For women who are now exposing themselves to it as a way to get men, no, it's the opposite. It's a way to get them to leave you. You want them to leave? Let them have full access without knowing anything about you. And see if they stay, if they actually want to push through that to get to know you after that. It's damaging on every level. Yes, you can get their attention, but you'd get their attention anyways because we're drawn to you. You'd get our attention regardless if you're walking around in a sports bra, which I've seen. That was not meant for that. It's to hold the girls in place, not for you to use it as a fashion sense. It's just weird. It's just weird. There's an appropriate place for it. There's a non-appropriate place for it. But I think we've lost sight of what that is. I'm not talking about being prudish. I'm talking about understanding where the replication of that takes place. Exhibiting yourself for someone's attention is being done already in a fake world. You have to understand. You can not accept it or accept it. It already exists, and it's predominant. It's the number one thing on the internet. It has always been right after it. I think it passed cat videos in the first year of the internet, right? When it was innocent, and then it turned not innocent. It's everywhere. Always has been. It's quick. It's easy. Requires zero investment. This is a recap now, okay? No investment. Full access, full reward, no investment. That's not real life. And if you get exposed to it enough through misuse, abuse, dependency, addiction, it alters the way that you perceive interpersonal interactions with people, causes you damage because you're less functional. Understand that that's real. And I see it. Not one person, not two person, dozens. 50, 100. I can't tell you how many people I've had this discussion with behind closed doors. So it's not anecdotal. It's widespread, whether you're faith-based or not. It's everywhere because it is so easy to access, and it does exactly what you think it's going to do. You understand that concept, everybody? It does exactly what you think it's going to do. You never lose. Not one time. I'm repeating myself, but I want you all to understand how important this is. It's not some simplistic thing that you can dismiss and say, well, everybody does it. Yeah, that is the problem. That is the problem. There used to be a lot of people that smoked back in the day, too. My parents came from that generation. They smoked. They don't now, but they did. I remember when I was a little kid, my mom would always smoke when my grandmother came over because my grandmother smoked. And I hated it. And I would tell my mom, stop smoking. You never do this unless my grandma's here. Of course, as a kid, I didn't understand why my mom was doing that. But I couldn't stand it. Even if it was for that one day that grandma was visiting. Made no sense to me why my mom would do that. Because I learned about it in school, that it hurt you. And I didn't want my mom to hurt. When you see it through the lens of human beings that are in pain, that are exposing themselves to this, you start to change your perception around it. If you block that part out, you don't just stop blocking that part out when you're in a real situation. You can be numb to it with an actual human being. That's scary, scary stuff. And that's where I'm going to leave it. You have to push back and find an alternative way of dealing with life as it comes at you than a false representation of how you think people are going to interact. It's never repeatable. Young brains are being distorted because they don't know how to get out of it. Their body catches up to where their brain's been exposed. Their emotional content starts to catch up. Their spiritual content starts to catch up. And sometimes it's too late. And they can't relate because they're so fixated on nudity and sex acts that they've lost sight of what it requires to actually have somebody feel safe enough, trust you enough to enter into that stuff willingly without compromise. And that's where I'm going to end it. I appreciate you all listening to me. There's much more we can say on it, and maybe I'll revisit it again in the future. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Distorted. Follow us however you can, but primarily we're on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Pod, and Spotify. Add a comment, share it with your friends. We appreciate you.